the slowdown in aid funding is presenting an opportunity for private sector players to step up and fill the void. Inkomoko, regarded as among the fastest growing companies in the world by the Financial Times, plans to invest $150 million in Africa, with a grand ambition to also be in 8 countries on the continent. CNBC Africa's editor-in-chief, Mutizwa, spoke to CEOO Oyler for more on the sidelines of the ongoing Financial Times Africa Summit in London.
Yeah, so for me, it's great being at this FT event because, you know, we think about the Financial Times as a publication that talks about hard business, like markets, industry. And I run an organization called Inkomoko, and we work with refugees, with entrepreneurs who have been displaced because of climate and conflict. And for us, these businesses actually should be on the cover of publications like the Financial Times because these entrepreneurs are innovative, they are inspiring, and they're actually building markets in some of the most hard-to-reach places, and they're doing so with tremendous success.
So what are you telling the business people who are gathered here, who are talking about how to keep growth going in a continent beset by these huge shocks that we have seen time and again, including, of course, the trade upheaval?
Yeah. So let me put this into a little bit of context. So right now, there are 50 million forcibly displaced people in Africa.
Yeah.
That's the equivalent of the 10th largest country.
Sure.
These people are have a spending power estimated at $82 billion, which is in the top 15 of country GDPs. This is a massive population with massive purchasing power.
It is.
And so the conversation that we're having at this FT event is about how private sector can see themselves operating good businesses within communities too often sort of pushed to the side for a humanitarian response.
Right.
And so as we're seeing global shifts in aid, there is now a tremendous opportunity for private sector to come into these massive markets with great supply chains, strong businesses, and to say, we actually have relevant services that can not just succeed in business, but can really help improve lives.
Yeah, and I can imagine you are mixing with all sorts of people. Are you finding resonance with your message?
Absolutely. Last week, we were in South Sudan with a group of partners. We had private philanthropists, we had telcos, financial institutions like Equity Bank, MTN FinTech was with us, and everybody is now seeing their place in these communities because of the need, but also because of the business opportunities.
Yeah, and so you work with refugees, as you say, but you also work in the formal economy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so let's talk about how the two interlink.
So refugee communities, as I mentioned, are overlooked markets. And so what we're also doing is we're working with national SMEs, small and medium enterprises, people who are trying to grow their own businesses. And we're saying, let's look at this refugee camp. Let's look at the 300,000 people who live there. Let's look at the 500,000 people who live in Kakuma in Kenya, or 300,000 people who live in Maban in South Sudan. These are big, dense markets. And so when we talk to Kenyan entrepreneurs, we say, look at the business opportunities that you could have if you penetrated this market. And we help local businesses see those opportunities and then enter.
So it's interesting what you say, because I lived in Kenya. It's been a while, but certainly one of the things I remember is that the refugees were well integrated. Is this something that you find throughout the region where you operate, in the countries that you operate in?
Right now in Inkomoko, we operate in 5 countries.
Right.
We're in Rwanda, Kenya, Ethiopia, South Sudan, and now Chad.
Right.
And in each one of those countries, we see tremendous trade between displaced people and the local hosts. We see that when there is business integration, that it actually lowers tensions and conflict.
Does it?
It absolutely does. When I'm walking across the street and I go to my supplier, when we see win-win situations, we're not fighting against each other.
Yeah.
And we as an organization, it's really important for us to see both types of businesses as really essential partners for strong growth within the markets.
Yeah, but it's not always the case that you find that integration is lit. I mean, I give the case of South Africa, where I'm sure you'd have picked up stories about the hostility towards refugee traders or refugee entrepreneurs, let me put it that way. what role would your organization play in such a case? And in fact, maybe let me ask you the question: would you come to South Africa?
Well, I'll get to that in a second. But, you know, there's a narrative around the world. When foreigners come into a country, you know, we hear this all the time, fear of taking jobs.
Yes.
Of taking away resources.
Services.
Services, exactly. And we've worked with 100,000 businesses over the last 10 years. And what we find is that refugee businesses not only support themselves, so that they need fewer services, they improve the lives of their families, but they're creating jobs. And over 50% of the jobs created by refugee entrepreneurs go to nationals.
Right.
Because people who are from outside the country, they need a local workforce to help them with transport, with logistics, with operations. And so when we actually see opportunities to leverage innovation and also leverage that entrepreneurial spirit, we actually find that these local communities are better off and that fear goes away pretty quickly.